toxic tales this morning, right? So the card that we are pulling for Miss Reesa Teesa, let's see let's see what we get. Let's see what we get. This is one of my favorite parts. Because there's always a message, right? Always a message in the cards, I believe. Oh, this is good. This one is good. Okay, so the card that we pulled today that I'm going to say is being offered to support Miss Reesa Teesa is I am filled with the goodness of life. So this is the card. It's one of my favorites. I am filled with the goodness of life. And it actually speaks about what you focus on. So the affirmation says, I deliberately focus on serving and observing my needs so that I am overflowing with abundance, enabling me to serve others. And that's actually kind of the angle I wanted to take today. So this is ideal, right? I am deliberately focusing on serving and observing my needs so that I am overflowing with abundance, enabling me to serve others. And the context for that, guys, is really that you can't pour from an empty cup, right? Or you can't pour from a toxic cup. And where we're going to start this discussion is we're going to start it around the understanding that first and foremost, you don't attract to your life what you want. You attract from where you are. So when you think about the storyline of Reesa Teesa, and guys, I'll be honest, I have literally only watched one episode, and I watched it actually because one of my girlfriends shared it in a friend group, like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy, have you seen this? So I was like, okay, and I'm gonna click and check, and it was the episode where she had the car, there was a car thing, at the time I believe he was her fiance, and he had ordered or took her to a car dealership, tell her that he's going to buy her a car. They went through a whole process. She stayed home from work to wait for the car to get dropped off. Car never dropped off. It was just another one of the many lies that this person was telling her. So the whole premise now is that she was engaged to, and I think ended up marrying a pathological liar. And this has created so much hysteria. Like when my friend said to me, shared the link to that particular conversation, which was not 2 minutes. It was very long. I was like, why is it so long? It took a long time to tell the story of how the guy lied about the car. But anyway, at that time when I went to visit the TikTok, I saw that she had 1.2 million followers. And I thought, oh, so she's already like an influencer. And this is a story that's just going along with all of the other stories that she tells. Come to find out that she was not a TikTok influencer. She was just a regular person on TikTok. But this story that has been shared now globally has consumed the public so much that when I checked today before coming on to do the show, she's at 3.6 million followers. No. I mean, I get fascinated from time to time. Like when The Crown just came out, I was really fascinated by that story. I wanted to binge watch, the episodes and understand what was kind of happening. But for the life of me, I could not figure out why anyone would watch 50 odd, I think it was 52 episodes in the series, of this person talking about the demise of their marriage. Now, when I started asking myself that question, I got really curious. It was not a judgment thing at all. So let me just make that very clear. It wasn't about judgment. It was more curiosity, right? And so there was a question about why would I watch, and then there was a question about, well, why would Reesa share? Why would she tell the story, right? And then I remembered, oh, but Stacey, you wrote a whole book about your story when your life did pop down. And so why did you do that? Why did you feel the need to share all of the catastrophe that your marriage became and all the different things that you encountered? I mean, my ex was not a pathological liar, but you have your problems. And I suppose when you look through just culturally, you see so many different, especially now with social media, you see so many different ways that people share their stories, and and the more toxic is almost like it's the better, right? It's that's kind of what it is. It's like the more toxic, it's the better, and so it got me to thinking, well, whether it's Reesa Teesa or somebody else. There was another popular story a few weeks ago about, he was an actor, a Marvel actor, that got caught up in a story where there was some kind of um, in insinuation that he had abused his girlfriend, and that went viral because she went to court and filed a whole claim about, how him beat her and all the kind of things. And and I was just like, okay, but this Risa Tisa thing got me, because whereas reality shows have the thing, which I see somebody here talking about, that's why people love reality shows, the drama. Whereas the reality shows, yes, definitely, it was just such a short space of time. So literally the question, Risa was answering a question. There was, these questions that pop up on social media and they ask for your input. So she was answering a question that somebody put out about what's the craziest thing your ex has ever done. And then she titled her series, Who the F Did I Marry? And that became the story, right? That became the story. And it became several stories following one after the other, because apparently it was one story, and then people asked questions, and then the story became a series that ended up at 52. Now, fun fact, I don't know if any of you actually know that there was a reality show called Who the F Did I Marry? And the reality show, which I think the last season just ended in 2024. I'm sure they're going to bring it back for another season. She may end up on it and maybe bring the husband, I don't know, or the ex-husband. But it was a similar premise. I think it had like 8 seasons. And the whole idea was that people married persons, they married these individuals, and then they found out that, maybe the person was a murderer or a rapist or some other kind of psychotic episode was happening with the individual. And where my curiosity kind of landed was on both sides. It landed with, what is it? Are the persons who are having this experience, are they actually paying attention to the why behind their having this experience? What is it in their lives that they are focusing on that has them attract this kind of experience in their lives? And a similar thought occurred for me, well, what was happening in your life at the time when you were having a toxic experience that had you attract situations, circumstances, or people that were not good for you or serving your goodness, that were not allowing you to be overflowing in abundance. And then on the flip side, I wondered, well, what is it about us that has us lean into or get so attracted and sometimes obsessed with these stories? It's like you can't help but watch. It's like the train wreck that you see happening in front of you, and you can't help but, it's like you cannot shift your eyes, right? What is it that has us, do that? And so that's the conversation I want to have. And whether it may not be Risa Tisa for you, but maybe it's the crown. Maybe it is watching the train wreck that became Princess Diana's life, and that whole monarchy, and seeing all of that excitement. Maybe it's somebody that's in your life, a friend, or your girlfriends. You sit down and you talk about all the gossip, all the things that are happening, and you're not necessarily seeing it as feeding the same need or desire, but it actually is. And so I think that the Risa Tisa actually gives us an opportunity to look at the impact that excessive consumption of these negative narratives actually has on us, and how even having exposure to all of this sad energy or toxic energy, it sometimes desensitizes us to the moments when we really need to be feeling compassion and leaning in and providing that support right? So let's touch on first and foremost, and maybe you can identify what it is within you that pulls you into stories like this, whether you got pulled into Reesa Teesa or not. What is it that pulls you into the stories that are somewhat sad and that are somewhat toxic or lean towards a toxicity? And then, look at understanding how you can, if that's not you, what maybe you encounter persons who get stuck in the loop of it. What is it that you can offer when you are observing this kind of energy? So, first things first, why is it that we are attracted to toxic takes, negative news? Negative news is another thing. A lot of fake news, all of those, kind of sensationalism that's happening. Psychological impact. So it is proven, right, that negative news or negative kind of insight, that kind of sad news, it triggers the limbic system. It triggers things within you that create a desire to go back. It's almost like you are jolting this, like when you taste something nice, excitotoxins. It's like it's a toxin, like when you eat candy. It's a toxin that's in it, like it's not good for you, but it excites certain nervous systems within your body. It excites certain parts of your nervous system. And so it's not really good for you, it's not really serving anything, but you go back for more. It's like, for some of us who end up in relationships with the guy or the girl, say, boy, this not really gonna work, but boy, the loving good, so you have to go back for more, right? It's a similar thing. It's literally a similar thing. It's just that this is actually news, or this is somebody's story, or this is a reality show. You can't really answer in your head why, but you're going back. So first and foremost, recognize that there's actually a scientific thing that's happening inside your body whenever you're paying attention to it. That's why you're going back. The next thing, sensationalism. Okay, the world has always thrived on sensationalism, always, from ever since, right? People are drawn to drama, people are drawn to dramatic stories, and it's due to the spin that people put on something. For example, you will notice that somebody will in your friend circle may tell a story, and it's like, you don't really pay attention to when they tell the story because no matter, and then somebody else starts telling a story and you're just lapping up every single word. It's because that particular way of telling the story, it provides some kind of sensational reaction within you, and you want to hear more, right? And there is a desire for you to get this shock to your system. There's also the piece where you're just bored and your life is not necessarily exciting, and therefore you want to have the experience of the excitement. And so you lean into these external sources, and you end up spending. I saw somebody put, I think it was my girlfriend put, I literally could not take my eyes away. Like she spent 500 minutes of her life just drawn into this. Here's another reason why that may have happened: an emotional connection. A lot of times you actually have an emotional connection to the challenge that this person is going through. So it actually feels like, oh my gosh, I can see myself. I can see how she would think that. I understand what could potentially be happening inside this person. And so you find out you get compassionate, or you have empathy, right? And you start to think now, well, how does this show up in my life? You start to remember the bad boyfriend, or the horrible girlfriend, or the crazy guy that you had. And you start to think about, well, what were some of the signs that I didn't see? People talk about red flag all the time. And this young lady seemed to be missing every flag. It could have red, blue, orange, green, yellow. Reesa was not seeing no flags, right? So then it begs the question, what is it that has me somewhat emotionally attracted to this? So again, what you focus on is what is expanding. And if it is that there is an emotional connection to the story, and that emotional connection to the story could also be where you feel like this is a life I want. So where it's not necessarily sad, like keeping up with the Kardashians, for example. There's a whole bunch of people that are addicted to keeping up with the Kardashians. We're going to be keeping up with the Kardashians till all of the little pitney them big. It's just, so it's the emotional connection in that instance, aside from the dramatic piece, is the desire to have whatever it is you see them have, right? And yes, absolutely, we may have unhealed trauma from our own experience, or even subconsciously we have trauma that we have not acknowledged. And when we see somebody else's trauma live on TikTok, we see somebody else's trauma live on TikTok, then we find ourselves attracted to it. I bet it's a my tea cold by now. I just start talk. I always do that. Why do I always do that? Okay, it's not cold. Okay. Yeah. So because we have this subconscious stuff going on within us, we find ourselves attracted to seeing how this person that I now have an emotional connection to, how are they going to navigate this thing? Maybe I can see something or learn something that I am going to take away and actually use for myself, so that I can become a better version of me, or a better person. But guess what happened now? Half of the time, I would say maybe more than that, because I used to be on that side of the fence too, guys, right? Half of the time, we're seeing this train wreck unfolding, right? We see it. We recognize that we are drawn in. We're seeing the lessons that we're learning. For example, Miss Reesa Teesa saw that this person, the car episode I watched was after him did done propose and she's a fiance. I don't even know if she did get a ring. Somebody tell me, did she get a ring ever? Because I don't know. Somebody tell me, one of y'all that's watching that may have seen it. Did she ever get a ring? So she has been with this person that has been lying over time. So she's already suspicious, right? And this person's living with her. Okay, she got a ring. So she engaged now to the liar, and she has the ring, and she's still observing patterns where things not adding up. And then he says he's getting her a car. And then he picks premium cars, luxury cars. He says she can't either choose between an Audi or I don't know if it's a Benz or a Beamer or what it is, right? Now, if you see that historically you have not been able to materialize any of the different things that this person has said that they're going to be bringing into your life, why now, all of a sudden, there is this magical manna from heaven that is going to ascend and allow this person to buy you a luxury vehicle? Like, at some point, and I don't remember what number that was. I think it was 11. I'm watching this and I'm like, okay, all the things leading up to this point, you're no longer in a position where you should be looking at the person and wondering whether or not this person is going to show up, because it's no longer about them. That's what I want to point out. This thing is no longer about that external person. If you are several episodes in, it's no longer about the person on the other side of the relationship. It is now about you. What are you doing to make sure that you are filled with the goodness of life? And when you start to recognize yourself in all of this, because I realized that while the story was happening, she did talk about not making excuses for herself, that she realizes, the choices that she made and the decisions and all of that. By the time she was saying that, she said that in quite a few of the episode, right? She said that in quite a few of them. But there was never a point in time where I really got the sense that she started to do the work of exploring why she was attracting this experience in her life. And that's the part of the work that you may not be doing. It's the part of the work that I wasn't doing when I was in my toxic mess, right? I was not investigating what is it about me that has me caught up in this crap. What is it about me that I am not focusing on, that I am not paying attention to, that has me seeking and desiring and desperate for, longing for the persons on the outside of me to deliver into my life? I actually posted something recently, guys, if you want to go back and watch it. It was a clip from a previous tea time where I was sharing that we give up our power when we seek this external validation. And for a lot of what I was listening to with the Reesa stories that kept popping up everywhere, it was just that validation that she was seeking. I am worthy of being loved. I'm worthy of having the husband that I desire or that I dream of, right? This is somebody that got, it was 2 weeks, they met before the pandemic. And after 2 weeks of meeting before the pandemic and lockdown, she decided to move this person into her home. Now, another influencer that I follow, this guy, Paul Brunson, and he actually focuses on love and relationships. And he wrote a book recently about finding love. I actually have it here. I'm going to do a proper unboxing. It's in this. But he actually said something in a post. It's a long time ago, I think sometime last year, that really resonated with me. And he talked about marrying slow, like getting married slow and getting divorced fast, right? Because you got to take your time to get to know somebody, but when we're in that mode of the feel good, them first few months, they call it the limerick stage, which is the romance stage. It's usually around 6 months. For some of us, it lasts a year or 2 years, where you are completely blinded by the actuality of this person that you are in a relationship with. And this is male or female, right? For the guys, it may be, yeah, man, she hot and the loving good and yeah, I like it, right? For the girls, it's, him same have money, because you may not even see the money. Him same have money, and he can give me the stability, and oh, he's handsome and he's from a good background. He has a good job. Whatever it is that is the attraction. But when you get caught up in it, you get caught up in the words and everything sounds sweet. And he wrote me a poem and he did all this stuff and he was saying all the right things and dropping it like it's hot. It's all the things, right? And we get caught up in that. But that first 6 months, that's really what it's for. It's the pheromones are alive and we are feeling that attraction and that pull. And we have to allow that bubble that we end up in to pop. And for many people, the bubble popped when the pandemic came, because they were literally in a state of in relationship. And then they were going through the process, and then pandemic hit and they had to actually spend time with the real person. And they realized, oh no, this is not the situation. This is not what's good for me. This is not ideal. This is not what I thought it would be. And 2 weeks is not enough time to ascertain whether or not this is your life partner. You may feel that way, but you are still in the limerick stage. You have not gotten beyond what it may look like. And this is not just for romantic relationships. This is also with jobs. This is also with friendships, right? Sometimes it may be that when you're in the situation with a person, right, you are feeling a connection. And then something happens where you see another side. When somebody shows you who they are the first time, believe it. Because if you are actually present enough to believe it, then you can start to pay attention to who? Yourself. You start to pay attention to you and the role you are playing in that relationship. So for many of us, Reesa Teesa became a thing because we had that emotional connection in some way, shape, or form. Underneath in our subconscious, we could either see ourselves in her, we could empathize with her because we know we've had our own bad relationships, and we wanted to see Is she going to get out of it? Is she going to get to a point where she's no longer focused on this person to bring her the desires of her heart? I think for me, one of the major shifts that I made in my life when I realized that I was just in too many toxic relationships, I made the shift of self examination. I started to observe me. I started to observe and write down the thoughts that were coming in, right? And for you, if you realize, if you are seeing the flags, because that's one of the things that kept coming up. Reesa didn't see the red flags. Somebody on here said she missed the United Nations of flags, like every color, right? Um, when you start to see things, because we all have intuition, we all have that gut, we all have that feeling that says something is not right here. And I know, Reesa, I know that when that man was up in your house, you knew something was not right. You felt the gut intuition, but that intuition was overridden by your desperation to experience a love and a desire that you have had that you have not been able to fulfill for yourself. When I observed that I was having a lot of toxic experiences, I had to start doing the work. And I'm not saying that it's easy, but it is so necessary if you are seeking to step into more fulfilling experiences in your life. You take on a job that does not serve you, where the boss is toxic and speaks down to you. You attract clients that do the same thing, and you feel I have to stay here because of the money or whatever else it is. Your parents, you may be experiencing that with your parents, where maybe you are living at home, right? Because you're still in university, or maybe you are older and you're taking care of a dependent parent. It's the same thing. You're in a relationship with friendships, and people take advantage of you. There is something within you that is yearning for inclusion, belonging, love, and you have to be able to find those things for yourself, with yourself first, before you can find it with anybody else. That is why the card for today is I am filled with the goodness of life. And the affirmation says that you deliberately focus on serving and observing your needs. I mean, when I first got married, I was sure that fellow was going to meet my needs. I was sure of it. Because in my head, I thought, well, that's what marriages are for. Marriages are for meeting each other's needs. And so I'm over here meeting needs, busting my butt, doing all the mommy and the wifing and the housekeeping and all the things. And I'm just waiting, kind of like how Reesa Teesa was just waiting for this person to show up. And you may be in a situation where you are waiting, right? Because you're rushing to something and you're waiting for the person to show up. You're not having the actual conversations. You're not doing the work with yourself because, maybe Reesa could have saved her marriage. Maybe she could have saved, the situation she was in by recognizing that there is something within me that attracted this pathological liar. And that's what is true. And that sometimes facing that is very difficult for us because, as you have said exactly right, you don't want to disrupt this dream that you have created, this story that you have created. And so instead of facing yourself and facing your reality, you decide that you are going to sit in the discomfort of it. And again, guys, what I want you to do is I want you to pick up on how this is serving other areas of your life. For Reesa Teesa, it may have been with love, and the love that she really needed was the self-love, because it was clear that there were things that she was struggling with. She may still be struggling with it now. She just maybe have more money because she was able to get money from this experience. But if the healing of what is actually your challenge, if the healing of the love that you are seeking, which has to start with you, does not take place, you may not attract a pathological liar, but it's going to be something else. right? It's going to be something else. And us as the viewers on the outside, whether it's our curiosity or our emotional connection, or because we're being fed by the sensationalism, whichever way it is, we have to start to recognize that being in these experiences is not going to serve us in the long term. Consuming too much of these stories, right? It kind of validates your own struggles in many ways. And in some ways, you may feel a bit of emotional release, or you may feel catharsis, you may feel validated, and as such you hang around in situations that do not serve you, because you can say, oh yeah, 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 I connect with her, and so yeah, you stick to what is not serving you. But here what happened now, you can offset that negative consumption, whether it is Reesa, Teesa, or otherwise, by understanding what is your attraction to it, right? Why is it that you are attracted to it? And what are some of the things that you need to be paying attention to in your own life, so that you are not spending too much time consuming this information? Or if you're not consuming it online or on television, consuming it in real life, right? You have to recognize where you need to focus on you and do the work to build yourself up, so that you can navigate and manage and stand in power for yourself when you're in these situations that aren't serving you. Ultimately, Risa was married for, I think it was 6 months, is what I saw on one of the other news channels, because everybody's capitalizing on Risa Tisa right now. Um, and it was a 6 month marriage, but they were engaged for a while. They moved in, lived together. I think it took a year and a half. Maybe the whole debacle took only a year and a half. But in that process, she was receiving some kind of validation while she was going through it. The marriage was 6 months. Did the whole thing last 6 months? I can't recall. Maybe you can tell me, Cams. It seemed like it was longer. The experience from the time she met him to the time they got divorced. So I know they got engaged and all of that. But during that time, there was some validation that was going on within her. A year and a half. So during the year and a half, there was validation that was going on within her. There was hope, desperation. I know I'm going to flip it. It's going to shift. It's going to change. But this is not somebody that she knew before then. So it's not like she was with this person for 3-4 years and is now looking to see some of the qualities that she would have seen in the person. No, this is a 2-week situation that then spans an additional year plus, where she is now getting to know the person and also having an opportunity to get to know herself and how she's not serving her actual needs. So the biggest takeaway from this, right, is making sure that there is self-reflection and awareness that's happening. And if I were to give Risa some coaching tips, which are the same coaching tips I would give to you, when you're in a situation where maybe you missed all the red flags and all the United Nations flags, you just missed everything. Maybe it is that you did not stand up for yourself in a way that saw you choosing something different when you saw the flags, right? If all of that has happened and you're now in a position where you're feeling the feelings, but you're not actually able to do anything, the first thing you have to get into a space of awareness. Really start to reflect on the experiences that you've had and the emotions that are coming up for you. What is your gut telling you? What are you feeling? Write it down. Okay? Fostering the self awareness helps you to understand why you show up in the way you show up, why it is that you are being triggered by certain, bits of information. So that's the first piece of advice I would give. Sit down, do some self reflection, get some awareness around who you are being and why you're doing what you're doing. The next thing is you want to start to introduce some mindfulness practices in it. I'm not even going to say to you, run out and get therapy, because if you don't see yourself, you're not even going to think about getting therapy or getting a coach or getting any of that support, right? Introduce some mindfulness practices to start to manage the overwhelming emotions, because clearly you're in an emotional cycle. I saw someone share that there is a payoff for us in victimhood too, and you are absolutely right. There is a payoff that you're getting by being the victim in a situation. The payoff is money for her, which is nice. You get a little top up, but there is still a traumatic payoff that is going to keep on giving, right? You're going to keep on giving yourself this traumatic payoff. And that traumatic payoff is the one that lasts throughout the different courses of your life. So you have to get mindful. You have to get self reflective, right? You have to start paying attention to the emotional instability that is there. And for me, it took several years to actually do that work, because I had spent several years exploring toxic relationships and not exploring myself. And that's what you have to do. You have to decide that you are going to start doing the work. You have to decide that you are going to do the self reflection, get yourself into awareness. You have to decide that you are now going to take a step towards putting some mindfulness practices in place. People hear the word mindfulness and they think woo woo. They think, oh, this is not really going to help me with my life. But you've lost a year and a half of your life in a toxic, traumatic situation because you were not paying attention to who you are and where you are emotionally, and why you have attracted this hot mess situation into your life. Another piece of advice that I would provide, even now, as all of this attention is happening with the Reesa Teesa situation, when you have a lot of things moving and shaking in your life, and you know that you are in toxic situations, or you know you have a lot of drama going on, it's time to set some boundaries. I like talking about setting healthy boundaries, right? Because a lot of times, especially as women, we don't know how to create protection around our hearts and around our minds, right? You have to be able to look at the different conversations you're allowing into your space, the different things you're consuming in your space, the different ways that you are allowing people to treat you, right? And establish some healthy boundaries. Learn to say the sentence no. It is a sentence. No, I will not accept. I do not want. I need time. I need space. You've got to go. Check me back in 5 years when you grow up, you mature, whatever it is, right? Leaving the job that is not serving you, that is causing you to downward spiral, right? Empower yourself to prioritize your self care and protect your mental well being from the negative influence. And it's the same thing that we have to do in our situations. You know, one of the things that was fascinating to me, guys, as I was actually watching all of the different news outlets, like, you know, because social media is blowing up with the Reesa Teesa story. I even saw where in London, they have stores, or a store had put up a TV that was showing the series, and people were walking by because it was us, you know, it had windows. People were walking by and stopping to watch it. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, how much of it is serving us when we are dealing with our own stuff, we're dealing with our own crap, and we are allowing all of this negative consumption, the sad news consumption, the fake news consumption, the reality show consumption. You know, I think to some extent we have to really guard our hearts and our minds with what it is that we're consuming, because we end up validating the payoff of our own victimhood, and that does not serve us in the long run. And then, of course, you know, I'm not going to finish this conversation without talking about seeking support. Reesa Teesa, if you have not already sought support, please seek support. You people in my community, if you are challenged with something that is a toxic relationship, a toxic experience, and you have unforgiveness, resentment, pain, feelings of victimhood happening in your life, seek support. If it is that you have historical trauma in your life, get therapy. If it is you've gotten some therapy and maybe you just need some practical tips for ways to move forward, get a coach. But seek the support. Don't just sit there in the throes of whatever it is and not feel like you can reclaim yourself and your life and move forward, right? So I hope that today's conversation was really good for you guys. I see a couple of comments. Great point. Years spent on toxic relationships, but not the same timeline on exploring how to heal yourself. Absolutely. And it's not just the exploration, I will add. Sometimes we can explore for days. We can explore for days and we don't actually put in the work. And the work is not hard work, but it requires consistent intention. It requires effort. It requires recognizing that your life can be better than it was yesterday, last year, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and deciding that you are going to choose yourself over being a victim and over experiencing any kind of drama that anybody else wants to bring into your life. Okay? So, on that note, I want to say thank you guys so much for joining Tea Time. I really love our conversations on our Saturday mornings. I still have to finish my tea. This one was a juicy one, so I just kept talking. But I hope you have a wonderful Saturday. And I hope that this little conversation will help you in your week ahead. So until next time, see you soon. And remember, be intentional. Take care, everybody. Bye.